Have you ever trusted someone and later realized that nothing about them was real? Not fake in an obvious way, but controlled, measured, designed. Like everything you believed about them was something they allowed you to believe. If that thought feels uncomfortable, good. Because this doesn't start with fear. It starts with trust. And that's why you don't see it. A psychopath doesn't need to look dangerous. They need to look right. Right for you. Right for your needs, your personality, your weaknesses. And once that happens, you open the door yourself. This is not about extreme cases. This is about subtle control. The kind that doesn't break you immediately. It reshapes you, slowly, without resistance, without confrontation. Until one day, you don't recognize your own behavior anymore. And by then, you're already involved. So pay attention. Because these signs don't appear all at once. They appear in fragments. And the danger is not missing them. It's noticing them and choosing to ignore them. The first sign, they mirror you so well. It feels unnatural. At the beginning, it feels like connection, like finally, someone understands you. They agree with you. They think like you. They respond in ways that feel familiar, too familiar. And that's the detail most people miss. Because real connection takes time. It develops through difference, through contrast. But this feels immediate, seamless, effortless. And that's because it's not connection. It's reflection. They're not showing you who they are. They're showing you who you are. So you trust them faster because you think you've found similarity. But what you've actually found is adaptation. The second sign, they create trust faster than you normally would. You feel close quickly. You open up sooner than expected. You share things you don't usually share. And it doesn't feel forced. It feels natural. That's what makes it effective. Because trust built slowly can be questioned. Trust built quickly is rarely examined. And once you've opened that space, they don't need to push further. You've already done it for them. The third sign, they remain emotionally controlled even when you're not. You react. They don't. You feel tension. They stay calm, not in a reassuring way, but in a detached way, like nothing really affects them. At first, you may see this as strength, stability, control, but over time, you start to feel the imbalance. Because emotional connection requires response, and what you're getting is observation. The fourth sign, something shifts, but you can't explain it. At the beginning, everything feels aligned, then slowly, something changes. Their tone, their attention, their presence, not dramatically, just enough to feel different, but not enough to confront. And that's where confusion begins, because you don't have proof, only perception. And perception is easy to doubt, especially when everything else still looks the same. The fifth sign, you start questioning yourself more than them. You replay conversations. You analyze reactions. You wonder if you misunderstood. And instead of asking what they are doing, you ask what you are missing. And that shift is critical, because now the focus is no longer on their behavior. It's on your interpretation. And that's where control becomes internal. The sixth sign, they test your boundaries slowly, not in obvious ways. Small things, subtle lines being crossed, moments where you feel something is off, but you let it go. Because it's minor. Because it's not serious enough. Because you don't want to overreact. And every time you allow it, the limit moves. And what once felt wrong becomes normal. The seventh sign, they stay calm while you become emotional. And this creates imbalance. Because the more you react, the more they appear stable. And the more stable they appear, the more you question yourself. Until eventually, you start regulating your behavior based on their reactions, not your own. The eighth sign, they create distance and then return, not randomly, strategically. They disappear just enough for you to feel the absence. Then they come back just enough to restore connection. And that cycle creates dependency, because now you associate their presence with relief. The ninth sign, you never fully know who they are. You know things about them, but not enough. There are gaps, missing pieces, inconsistencies that don't fully connect, but not enough to confront. And over time, You stop trying to understand. You accept the uncertainty. And that's where control deepens. Because clarity is gone. The 10th sign. You felt something was wrong from the beginning. Not clearly, not logically, but instinctively. A moment, a reaction, a detail that didn't sit right. And you noticed it, but you ignored it. Because everything else felt good. Because you didn't want to ruin it. Because you didn't have proof. And that decision is what allowed everything else to happen. This is where most people misunderstand. They think the danger is not seeing. But the real danger is seeing and not acting. Because once you ignore your own perception, you disconnect from your own clarity. And once that happens, anyone who knows how to control that space can influence you. Not through force, but through confusion. You don't lose control suddenly, you lose it gradually. Every time you doubt yourself. Every time you explain something that feels wrong. Every time you stay when something tells you to step back. And the hardest part to accept is this. You were never completely unaware. You noticed more than you admitted. You felt more than you trusted. You just chose not to act on it. Not because you're weak, but because acting requires certainty. And certainty was exactly what was taken from you. So now the question is not whether that person was a psychopath. The question is why you ignored what you already saw. Because that answer is what changes everything. Stay aware. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you don't need labels. You recognize it. And when you recognize it early, you don't get pulled into it again. And that's the difference between being controlled and seeing it before it happens. You think you would notice it earlier. That there would be a clear moment, a line being crossed, something obvious enough to stop everything. But that moment rarely comes. Because what you're dealing with doesn't rely on intensity. It relies on consistency. Small shifts, repeated over time, until they stop feeling like shifts and start feeling normal. And that's where most people lose themselves. Not in one decision, but in many small ones. Decisions to stay silent, to ignore, to wait, to see how things go. And every time you choose that, you move further into something you don't fully understand. Because the structure is not built to be seen clearly. It's built to feel manageable. Just enough discomfort to notice, not enough to act. And that balance is intentional. Because action ends the dynamic. Discomfort without action sustains it. You begin to adapt in ways you don't notice. You explain more. You tolerate more. You question less. About them and more. About yourself. And slowly, your internal reference shifts. What once felt wrong starts to feel familiar. And what feels familiar becomes acceptable. Even if it drains you. Even if it confuses you. Even if it slowly disconnects you from yourself. And that's the point where the damage is no longer external. It's internal. Because now, you're not just reacting to them. You're changing because of them. And that change doesn't happen loudly. It happens quietly. In the way you think. In the way you respond. In the way you hesitate before trusting your own perception. And once that hesitation becomes your default, control is no longer something they need to maintain. It maintains itself. You start predicting their reactions, adjusting your behavior, avoiding certain topics, choosing your words more carefully. Not because you want to, but because something in you knows that being fully natural no longer feels safe. And that realization is important because it tells you something very clear. You are no longer acting freely. You are adapting to something. And that something is not always visible, but it is always present. And once you see that, you can't ignore it in the same way. Because now the question changes. It's no longer about them. It's about you. Why are you still here? Why are you still adjusting? Why are you still explaining what feels wrong? And those questions are uncomfortable because they remove distance. They bring responsibility closer. Not blame, but awareness. And awareness doesn't let you stay in the same place without noticing it. You begin to see your own patterns, where you hesitated, where you ignored, where you chose comfort over clarity. And that's where the real shift begins. Not when you understand them, but when you understand yourself inside the situation. Because once you see your role clearly, you stop repeating it. Not because you force yourself, but because it no longer makes sense. You can't unknow what you now see. You can't pretend it's unclear. You can't go back to the version of you that ignored the signals. And that's where control breaks. Not through confrontation, not through explanation, but through clarity. And clarity doesn't need permission. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need agreement. It only needs recognition. You see what's happening. You understand the pattern. And that's enough. Because now, every time something repeats, you recognize it immediately. Not after, not too late, but in the moment. And that changes your response. You stop waiting. You stop explaining. You stop giving time to something that has already shown you its nature. And that's where the dynamic ends. Not because it disappears, but because you no longer participate in it. And that's the difference most people don't reach. They see, they understand, but they stay. Because leaving requires something most people delay. A decision, a clear one, without negotiation, without waiting for the right moment. Because the right moment never comes, only clearer awareness. And what you do with that awareness defines everything. So the question becomes simple, not easy, but simple. Now that you see it, what are you going to do?